Hello everyone and welcome to the Barrens Chat podcast. I'm Sod and with me tonight is my co-host Guck. This is a podcast about World of Warcraft by two guys who play it. Guck, where is pre-patch for one? We haven't heard anything. We have been able to download it. It doesn't look like it's going to come today for the listeners, and maybe next week we'll see it and we'll have a very short pre-patch, which is good and bad, I guess, depending on how you take it. But, you know, with the launch coming, we're 28 days away exactly right now from the Battle for Azeroth launch date. I'm very excited. What are you looking forward to when you first step into the Shadowlands?
Yo, I am. There is so much to be excited for. That moment when Shadowlands just turns on, I'm still thinking about what tune I will be on when that happens. I think that's a big first decision, especially for guys like you who have just literally every class that you could choose from. The meta has informed the decision, the play styles, the unpruning, all of the changes to the kits and the covenant ability that you're going to get into, the conduits. There are so many things to think about with that moment. I think right now, if I had to decide, I would probably end up picking my Death Knight, because with the way things are going, they just put a massive nerf onto Death's Due, which is the Night Fae Covenant. That one was largely for Mythic Plus. It was going to be a absolute monster in Mythic Plus with the cap at 15% strength, but they lowered the max to 8%. So that's a that's a fairly massive nerf, about 50% nerf. But, it's so hard to decide because there's also the brand new brew system with monks. And I really want to mess around with that. It seems like an element of it is kind of reactive. Like, you'll take a bunch of damage and then you'll purify it off, and as you purify stagger, it builds up a shield. So in my mind, you're going to be staggering through physical damage, and then you pop this big shield for the magic damage or the big spikes, and anything that goes through that shield just turns into stagger, and the cycle just continues. It's so hard to pick because both seem so good, but I don't. You can only play one. You can only play one when launch happens, and after that point, that one is going to have that much more time than the others, and you're more likely to commit that one to being the main. So I don't know, dude.
Yeah, well, hearing that you're leaning towards Death Knight makes me happy, and I think, definitely going to play Warlock. I was thinking about Boomkin for a little while, but with the state of that and the nerfs, it looks like Warlock, so you and I are playing the same exact characters that we were playing when we met all those years ago, so that's cool and nostalgic. And I was talking to people today because, our guild's short on range DPS, so melee was never really an option for me. And, my Warlock has been pretty much my main for the last several expansions, and I was talking about professions with a couple guys earlier, and I'm Herbalism Alchemy on my Warlock, and I think the way it's shaping up, I might only have time to level one character before the raid tier, which is fine, but it takes away a little bit of that utility that I like to bring. So I think what I'm going to do profession-wise is take Herbalism and Tailoring while I'm leveling, because Tailoring gives you that buff where you get extra cloth to drop off of humanoids, so I get extra cloth, I can give it to my friend who's a tailor, we can, craft stuff, legendary materials, all that. And then when I get to level 60, switch it up, go Inscription, try to make some gold, make the trinkets, I'll have all the herbs saved up. And then once the raid tier drops, do my thing, go back to Alchemy, because that's how I've always played my Warlock, the 2-hour flasks for the win. And that's really my game plan right now. Ideally, I would like to have a second alt ready to go, and on the first week of the raid tier, I don't know if I will, but I guess I would probably lean towards my shaman for my second alt, which is typically what I play as a second alt. So we'll see how that goes. Like, 28 days away, I'm moving. I have one more podcast in this location, and then I'll be in a new location for after that. So just in time for the launch of Shadowlands, I'll be settled into my new home, and hopefully the way it's looking right now and how I discussed where my computer is going to go with my wife, I might be set up in a closet, which should make my audio better. And I'm really overly excited. I'm excited for pre-patch. I don't think I've played WoW all week. I think I logged in briefly. This patch for me has really run its course. I completed all my goals, and as much as I'd like to get gear on a character or two here or there, it's just not worth it to me. And I've talked to the guys I've been running keys with, and they, we've all kind of taken a hiatus, as has most of our guild, but we're ready to go. I mean, pre-patch comes, we have a very active community, and I'm really looking forward to getting forward with it. Having that 5-man squad going into Shadowlands. I have a question for you. War mode on or off? Because everybody is going to be funneled into Bastion. Do you think that you'll see an excessive amount of world PvP? And do you think it'll slow you down so that the bonus XP from War mode will not be worth it?
I think it's all going to boil down to how Blizzard designs these new zones. I think the idea that I have in my mind, the Covenant zones are massively important to the game, largely the expansion. It's like the Broken Isles were important to Legion, but the Covenant zones seem to be so much more important to Shadowlands. The same way that, like, in BFA we had the starting islands, but then Nazjatar was also important, and then they added Mechagon, and then it's like, okay, well, then also the rest of Azeroth is important now with the assaults. I feel like the zones that we're going to get are going to be bigger and badder in a good way. They're going to be bigger and better largely than the zones that we're used to. And that should resemble Nazjatar in some kind of way, where there will be kind of central areas where the Alliance and the Horde will be. And then the peripheral zones attached to that will probably be the Horde or the Alliance quests that guide through that situation. And then everything will be kind of the same. I haven't watched much of the leveling from alpha and from beta because I want to enjoy that myself as I go through it. But I imagine that's what we're going to see. Hopefully some form of like natural Alliance versus Horde split where later in the zone we'll be together. But I feel like either way, keeping it on will be worth it. It feels to me like it'll be that kind of, I forget what point in WoW this happened. I remember it in Classic, but it was, I think, Phase 1 Classic before we had the honor kill system, and you were leveling, and people were still like legitimately leveling. There were occasions, plenty of occasions, where people would just kind of coexist. The Horde and the Alliance would coexist, because if they spent the time fighting, it would just be like chain-pulled mobs, constantly fighting each other, just dying and corpse walking. So I feel like there might be a like everyone's on war mode, but nobody's fighting kind of thing going on, where people are just kind of letting each other exist. So I think it'll be safe for us, especially because we're going to be rolling mob deep, to have war mode on.
Yeah, I would guess, like, I would assume that since, Horde and Alliance to the citizens of the Shadowlands isn't really a thing, that because everybody is the Maw Walker, that they go through the story the exact same way. I wouldn't think that they would separate Alliance and Horde at all, but I would just say it just depends on how lucky you get with your shard, right? Like, if we zone in and we're just unfortunate enough to be outnumbered 100-5 by the Alliance, then war mode is going to get switched off real quick. And I think that's definitely going to happen to some people. I hope it doesn't happen to me, but I would assume that, that's just the way it goes. Like sometimes you zone into Nazjatar in the World PvP events going on, and I don't think I've ever seen Horde participate in that ever. And the Alliance are always just annihilating the Horde at New Home. So that's how I would assume that would go. It's just luck of the draw with your shard and where that goes. And like, I don't know. That's how I would say it would go. I'm gonna start with it on, and if I need to turn it off, I will. That's pretty much how my war mode goes.
I think you're right. I think with the way that the narrative is going, they may have us all funnel through exactly the same area, doing exactly the same things as the Alliance. And if that's the case, I honestly don't know how they're going to handle it, because it will be so fucking dense. Everyone is going to be in the same areas fighting over the same mobs. It's going to be chaos if it's not dealt with in some type of way. I don't know what will happen, but 10% is a lot. 10% is significant.
It adds up for sure.
Like when you're doing the content that we're going to be doing, which is like, the big pulls, moving as a group of 5 to like clear out the quest as quickly as you can, 10% adds up, especially if you're doing stuff along the way. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to see what the meta is. There's going to be a new meta, right? So with BFA, we were just kind of sequestered in our own little area away from the Alliance that everyone just leveled as they wanted to. But this will be different.
Yeah, and I think it'll be good. I think it is cool to see how the narrative goes through in a specific order, at least the first time. I kind of like that, like how the story will progress, so that'll be good. Another thing that we wanted to talk about tonight, the Maw mount. So you can't mount in the Maw. That's been going on pretty much the entire beta, right? You only have a specific amount of time you can spend in there. You have to be running around to do it. You can unlock a mount specifically for the Maw by doing Tourgast runs. You obviously know more about that than me. You're really into Tourgast, so with that, I do think it's cool. It gives you kind of like a reason to push your limits in Tourgast to really push your time that you can spend in the Maw as an end game zone that is, I'm assuming, going to be important. I don't even know what drops in the Maw. From what I understand, it like hasn't been finished, but pretty cool idea, pretty cool concept. I'm sure people will be upset. I think it's good. I'm sure you think it's good as well. What do you think about that? How do you feel?
So largely what people should be thinking about Tourgast is the way they advertised it is a little bit disingenuous compared to what the effect will be. You can indeed engage with the system on a very minimal level, and you'll still end up with as much as you could get out of a weekly reward. So that will be 2 runs of the kind of standard Tourgast. Then there's also the challenge mode, and going higher and higher through the challenge mode, through all 8 layers of what's called the Twisted Corridors, you will then get the Corridor Creeper mount, which is the only mount that we know of right now that can mount up in the Maw. Obviously, it's not the only way that you can move fast in the Maw. A druid friend with travel form, you can hop on their back. There's other stuff that lets you kind of move fast, speed potions, whatever. But for consistent move speed in the Maw, it'll require essentially this mount. And yeah, that requires you getting through all 8 layers of the optional mode. So if getting a lot of content out of the Maw is something that you want to do, then you indeed will have to engage with Tourgast because of what Sod mentioned, that timer that counts down, that Eye of the Jailer system while you're in the Maw, right? Like you have to get in there and grind Stygia to get your rewards. The Eye of the Jailer is going to fill up. The faster you move, the more Stygia you can get. So if that's something you're interested in, you will probably end up spending a lot of time in Tourgast. Now, the way it works as it is, each layer takes about an hour to an hour and a half. So I feel like there's a soft kind of sanity cap where you will go insane out of game just being tired of what you're doing for doing this for too long. But if you commit 8 hours to Tourgast in some fashion, you can do 4 2-hour sessions, 8 1-hour sessions, whatever, or you can do what I'm going to do, which is going to be 1 8-hour session because I'm a masochist. You'll get the mount. And that will be account-wide. You don't have to do it ever again, but it is something that you will have to do once if that's what you're after.
I don't hate that. I kind of wish Tourgast is how they originally advertised it and how originally it was on beta. But from what I understand, the changes aren't terrible, so we could be in like a good scenario. Like originally, opinions of Tourgast were very high, and then as they changed it and kind of watered it down, it kind of, the opinions went really bad and thought it was terrible, and now everybody is saying that Tourgast is in good shape.
Yeah, it seems like it's in good shape. I like the idea that there's this split mode. I personally am really biased, and you guys know that I am into these types of games. The Risk of Rain kind of feel that Tourgast gives is enough for me to know that I will want to continue playing it. Another thing to keep in mind, last I checked, you will only be able to wear 1 legendary during this first phase of Shadowlands, so you won't have to grind too much out of Tourgast if you don't want to go overboard, and also kind of assuming that you get good luck in getting the right legendary, the one best in slot one that you want to start out with off the bat. So there are ways around it. Ultimately, if you want to move fast through the Maw, which will benefit you by getting more Stygia, and the Stygia can be used to buy a bunch of things. I believe conduits can be bought with Stygia. There's a lot of stuff that you can get. It's going to cost you some time, and it doesn't seem like that time needs to be all at once. I feel like once you complete a layer, that layer is kind of complete, and you can choose to continue beyond that or not. But that's totally up to you. I'm not actually entirely sure of that. I really hope it doesn't require you having to do an 8-hour run. If it is a singular 8-hour run, that would be pretty nuts. But if it's just like, okay, I completed layers 1 through 3 today, I'm going to take a break and try for 4 through 6 and pick up where I left off, that I think would be a really good system. I think that kind of balances the casual with the hardcore. If it were Risk of Rain, they would make you play all the way up through layer 8 as an 8-hour session. So we'll see what they do. I'm not sure how they do it.
Yeah, overall, honestly, I didn't know that the Maw had that much in it. I do think that's cool. We'll see how annoyed I get with it, like with Island Expeditions and stuff like that specifically. So should be interesting gameplay, and obviously it really gives you a reason to push yourself in Tourgast, which is good, I think. And I hope the cosmetic rewards in themselves are also cool, because I do think that having good single player and also optional group content is good for the game. And if you get people that are like-minded that want to push cosmetic rewards and see how far they can push themselves in Tourgast, like what that's all about, I think that would be really good for the game, and really excited. Maybe we'll get a ladder system. I wish they would put that in the game for PvP and Mythic Plus as well. I think that's a system where they're really missing out and relying on third-party programs to do it. I don't think it hurts, but I also think it would benefit the game to have a leaderboard in itself.
Yeah, I don't expect there to be an in-game leaderboard, but I do expect there to be some level of competition where, because I think there's only 8 layers, and that kind of represents the difficulty, where people will race to do an 8-layer run, or some distinct period of time to do some distinct activity in Shadowlands, or not in Shadowlands, in Tourgast. I bet there will be something, but it's definitely going to be third party. Blizzard's not going to do any of that in-house. Why would they do it in-house when they know someone third party will do something better for free? Like Mythic Plus, like that was Raider.io is free for Blizzard. Someone else does it, and it's a system that helps their game, I think. Ultimately, I do think it helps because more people play, because they can, track their number and watch their number go up. But, that's just how I feel. Blizzard's never good with third-party stuff. They'll let someone else do it, and if they think they can make some money out of it, they'll just tell them to stop. They won't even incorporate it, so we'll see.
Yeah, competitive gameplay is a good thing for WoW, and I think it's something they've been missing for a while. So maybe we'll see if they come back with it.
All right, I've got another quick episode for you guys, but thanks as always for listening. We appreciate it. Check us out on our website, barrenschat.podbean.com. You can send us an email, barrenschatpod@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter, @barrenschatpod, @SadiLOL, @GuckyMan, and we will see you guys in the next one.